So for those of you who watch my channel, you may have noticed that I don't like to leave things the way they're supposed to be. I like to change them. And as a miniature painter, that's my right to change things. And it's your right too. So if you want to change things, go for it. But sometimes there is a whole aesthetic that just kind of stops you from purchasing miniatures just because you're just like, oh, I don't like orcs. I don't like elves. I don't like whatever. And in my situation, I have kind of determined that I don't like things that are too clean. But that doesn't mean you can't mess them up and make them a little dirty and make them better. And that's what I did this week. So if that interests you, y'all, stick around. Let's talk about it. There are a lot of different ways that you can change miniatures to fit your style, to fit the way you want them to be. Even, just by how you paint them. You could paint them the same colors that the companies that put them out do, but change them and paint them in your style, even in those same colors, and they'll look different. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do, but one of the easiest things that you can do is make things not so shiny. And there's a bunch of ways to do that. But today I'm going to talk about how to make metals shiny, Grimdark not shiny. Okay, and we're going to do it in 3 steps. And they're simple. Step 1. Paint the miniature. Paint your metallics, right? Do whatever you want to do. And I'll go through all of these and show you what I mean. Step 2, well, you got to dirty it up. Or in our case, we're going to use an oil wash to dirty it up. And then step 3, just do highlights. That's it. It's super easy and it's super fast. And well, I shouldn't say it's super fast because you got to wait for stuff to dry a couple times. But if you're doing a lot of things, it's not a bad paint method to use. And just to kind of show what I mean, I painted 3 models and collectively it probably took me 45 minutes of actual painting time and work time, which I thought was pretty good. But yeah, let's get into it. Let me show you how it's done because it's super easy. Let me introduce you to Feudum. These are the fancy, good-looking knights of Warcrow, and the models are incredible. Like, they really, when you think of like old world knights on horseback with chivalry and tabards and stuff like that, that's these guys. They look amazing, and they are your standard knight in shining armor. And I have to fix that. So let's do it. So at this point, I have painted all of the metal. And I've just done 1 coat over all the parts that I want it to be. And there's no gradients. It's all just one flat color. And this is what I was talking about, as in, these are your bright knights in shining armor, right? So we got to do something to make that armor not so shiny because they're veterans, right? We got to do something to make it so it looks like they've been through a couple of fights. And I want to point out that I haven't been super careful. I don't need to be at this point because a lot of what I'm going to do to muck it up is going to go into those cracks. It's going to go into those crevices and places like that. So I don't have to be overly careful. As I was painting this, I was using the paint when it was at its wettest on the actual plate, and then I would try and dry brush the chainmail just so I would keep that black shadow in between the links of the chainmail, just because I think that it looks better that way. And even some of the detail you can't quite see as well. You can still see the face on the helmet, which is amazing, and even on the pauldron. But later, when I do my grime, those things will come out even clearer. And if they don't, it's my job to make sure that they do. But this is step 1. So let's move on to step 2. Something I want to put in really fast for the sake of this video. You can paint the miniatures. You can take an already done miniature and do this process to it. at least the next two steps. If it's already painted, then you know the first step, you did it already. And you can leave your highlights and everything on there. It's not that big a deal to do this. So just kind of keep that in mind as we jump into these next two. Okay, so first things first. As you can see, I went around and I painted the rest of the models. Now, I didn't do like a great job. You're not seeing like highlights and things like that. And that's because of the next step. But I wanted to get color on them. I wanted to try something new, which is what we're going to be doing today. But basically, I have gone through and I have put a satin varnish on these guys. Boom, right there. And I just brushed it on with a brush. I didn't spray it on or anything. But because the next step has a tendency to remove paint. Now, I've been told that if you let paint dry for a long enough time, then when you put on the oil wash, it doesn't pull off the paint. But on the off chance that it does, because I've tried it a bunch of times and it always seems to pull it off a little bit, I varnished them to see what that does. And now, basically, all we have to do is apply the oil wash. And this oil wash is just, it's brown oil paint mixed with mineral spirits. And earlier I put in a little bit of black just to make it a little bit darker. Keep in mind when you do this, you're going to want to use a brush that you don't really care about too much. And you can make it as thin or as thick as you want. I wanted it really thick this time around. And so that is what I have done. But now we are literally just going to put it on, and we are not going to be shy about it. We are going to put it on thick because ultimately, after this dries, we're going to come back through with a cotton swab and more mineral spirits, and we're going to remove this. And like I was saying, you can make it as dark or as light as you want it to be. You can add whatever colors you want. The beauty of oil washes is that they're so easy. As long as you have the color of the oil paint, you can make the wash whatever color you want. Sometimes you go black, sometimes you go brown, just depends on what you want to do here. And for this, I'm going Grimdark. I'm going dirty, gross, nasty. I probably should have added a little more black to it just to make it a little darker. But overall, I'm okay with this. I'm not super picky. One thing I will say is try to avoid like things that you plan on lighting up later, just because pulling this stuff off is easy enough, but it's not like you're using a needle or anything to get it off. You're usually using cotton, and so make sure that you can get the areas where it's going to be. And this again is why I didn't care too much about doing highlights and things like that, because I'm just going to cover it all anyway, and you can do highlights later. So that's what we'll do, and we'll jump to that. Now, there are enamel washes, there's streak and grind, there's different ways to do this. I like the oil wash because, well, honestly, it's cheap and it works really well. It's that simple. And I mean, as long as you have oil paints and mineral spirits, which I mean, they go for forever, both of those things when you buy them. It's not a bad way to do it. And you can alter them and change them. You can make it as light or as dark. If you want it to be green, if you want it to be rusty, you can do all those things with it. And the thicker you put it on, the more grim-darkier it's going to be. So keep that in mind. Okay, and this is the fun part. After you've let it dry for 20-30 minutes, you get your little cotton swab, cotton sponge, whatever you have. I like to do one side of it in the mineral spirits and the other side just normal. And then you just start wicking away at the grunge. Start pulling it off. Keep in mind, if you haven't allowed it to properly dry, when you do this, it's going to start pulling away stuff you don't want it to pull away. And I like to have a couple sponges just because they start to get really filled, or Q-tips, sorry, really filled early on. Now, this is something I kind of want to point out. The emblems on his armor, this is the chance to kind of make them shine and pull them out, so that you can use the wet and just dab away what you don't want to be there. And just kind of clean it up however you want. And keep in mind, we're going to go back and we're going to paint this again after removing a lot of the grunge. We don't remove it all. The more we remove, the more grimdark it becomes. But if something happens and you don't like it, you can come back and hit it again if needs be. And that's it. Now, with the metal all grimed up, you just go in and do your highlights. Normally, you'd have to do highlights in a brighter color, but because we've done this, we don't have to. We can just use the same color that we used before. That doesn't mean you can't use brighter colors. You can still use brighter colors if you want to bring things up. And depending on how much of the other colors or of the oil wash that you stripped away, maybe you do want to do more. Maybe you do want to brighten things up. You totally can do that now. But for the most part, that's about all you have to do to make a normal knight in shining armor a Grimdark knight in worn armor from all of his exploits and all the things that he's done, which in my mind, I think is way better than just the normal shining knight. There's a place for that. There definitely is, but in my mind, you gotta test your metal to be a knight, and I feel like these guys are that way. So just do some color touch-ups, finish your base, and it's done. And that's it. Those highlights. When I was doing this, something I thought about like immediately after I'd done the video was that I should just dry brush this again. And so that's what I did with my metallics, is I hit them with a dry brush, went around, just dry brushed the whole thing. It made it less grimdark. It made it less, you know, like Dark Souls and more a little bit shiny armor. But that's kind of what I was going for in the first place, is I wanted these to be knights that were tried and true and had gone through that process. They had started shiny and they had gotten to this point. Not like they had just, you know, been at the bottom of the ocean for 100 years. Okay. And this is how it turned out. And I'm super happy with it. Like, they're not the best painted models in the world. Like, they're not going to win any awards or anything like that. But if you want to paint a whole army and get it on the table fast and do it in a way that looks good, like, I mean, these look like straight out of Dark Souls, you know? So I loved that. And for a way to make metallics not so shiny, this just speaks to me in a way that was so fun and so easy to do. And the highlights often for me are one of the more fun parts. And so it was kind of nice to be able to basically base coat, highlights, done. And like I said, you can't see a ton of detail. I could have done more to these. I could have gone and I could have added light to the eyes. I mean, I could have done the bases on them, you know, which I will do. Scout's honor. I'll do it. Okay. And there's a lot of things that you could have done to add extra. You could have done decals. You could have done other things. Okay. And it's up to you in that process where you do those, because maybe you do want emblems. Maybe you want emblems on shields and things like that, but you want the Grimdark on top of that. So it looks rough. It looks worn, you know? So there's different ways that you can use this, but it's a really easy skill to make things look really good. At least in my opinion. And if you like that, please like, subscribe, stick around, follow the channel. I love doing little things like this, painting tips, especially for games like Warcrow. Warcrow is awesome. The Feudum is awesome. Look into it. They're fun. And they can be your style if your style is more grimdark. I promise. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something today. And as always, do you have a better way? Do you like the Grimdark paint scene? That's a real question there. Do you like Grimdark, or is it just too much? And with that being said, what's your favorite painting style? Do you like vibrant colors? Are you all about contrast? Do you like the John Blanche color scheme? Let me know in the comments below, because I'd love to know why and what your thoughts are. And as always, thanks for sticking around. And just remember, don't spend so much time building your world that you forget to spend some time in it. Until next time.